This video is all about Canon's plans for the RF mount, why they're cracking down on third-party lens makers, their plans for the future, and when we might actually get to see third-party lenses. Details coming up, but first, I encourage you to subscribe and choose all notifications so you're kept informed on the latest camera gear, news, and rumors. Canon Rumors says that Canon has no plans to give permission to third-party manufacturers to utilize their RF mount patents as they pertain to electronics and autofocus anytime in the near future. And I'm sure that one quote alone is going to have you very upset. In fact, I've been watching the comments very closely over the last 3 videos on this story, and I'm shocked. In the 3 years of having this channel, I've never seen so much blowback. I've never seen this much on my channel for any topic in the past. And I've seen a lot of blowback. I've seen several mistakes. But in 3 years of producing this channel with over 800 videos, I've never seen so many people upset and frustrated that they're leaving Canon, that they're moving to Sony. And I can see this from my affiliate links down below. Many of you are clicking on them, and I've seen several sales for Sony Alpha cameras. I'm really shocked by the level of frustration. And I understand that many of you are also very happy with Canon's L series glass. But I think one thing I'm seeing that's consistent from all the responses: where are all the RF lenses? There isn't nearly enough glass, whether it be L series or non-L series. So why on earth is Canon cracking down? And here are the reasons why. Canon doesn't feel that the RF lineup is anywhere near the maturity, and they want the lineup filled out with their own lenses first. Canon still has lots of work to do in both the non-L and L series lineups. And this information from Canon Rumors is coming from reliable sources, and over the years, Canon Rumors through Craig has done a very good job of delivering us highly credible and reliable information. But let's think about this for a minute. Canon doesn't feel the RF lineup is anywhere near maturity, and they want the lineup filled out with their own lenses first. Now, this really isn't surprising to anybody, is it? I mean, there's not nearly enough L series glass out there. I mean, how many of us are asking for a 35mm f1.2 or other L series glass? Or what about some more affordable RF glass? Or what about some mid-level glass? If we look at the EF mount, Canon was very good at producing L series glass, and then at the very low end, some cheap affordable glass that would cost $99 for the 50mm f1.8. And then of course in the middle there was some mid-grade glass, so Canon had a good representation for the EF mount. But they also had over 107 lenses for the EF mount. The RF mount was started in 2018, and when the first camera released was the EOS R, it only had 3 lenses to go with it. The 24-105, which was relatively affordable at the time, and of course the very expensive 50mm f1.2. It's pretty obvious to anybody looking at the Sony lineup, Sony, who's been producing mirrorless cameras for a very long time, that not only does Canon not have enough of their own glass out there, they also don't have enough cameras. Yes, we got the R5 and the R6 in 2020, some 2 years ago, and the R5 was a breath of fresh air. No longer did we feel that Canon was severely crippling their cameras. Yes, the overheat, and yes, that's been done to death. And with firmware 1.6, yes, it's been significantly improved. But the R5 and the R6 marked a dramatic departure from Canon crippling their cameras. It had a lot of new technology in it. 8K RAW, IBIS, 4K, 120 frames per second, not cropped at 1.6 or 1.7, full sensor readout, 20 frames per second. I mean, I can go on with a list of features. They were shining great new cameras, and they sold, and they did very well. But here we are in 2022, and yes, Canon released the EOS R3, which is not really their mirrorless flagship camera. It's meant as a stand-in until Canon does come out with the Canon EOS R1, their flagship mirrorless camera that's due to replace the 1DX Mark III, which came out in 2020. Sony released their flagship mirrorless camera in 2020, the Sony Alpha 1. Then a year later, Nikon announced the Nikon Z9, their flagship mirrorless camera, which started shipping just before Christmas. But we're approaching a year on that now, and where's Canon? And what about the EOS RP? It was rather dated back in 2019, and it hasn't aged very well. We're supposed to be getting a refresh of that camera. And what about a camera that sits between the EOS RP successor and the R6? Well, many have dubbed this the EOS R Mark II, and whatever it's going to be called, the EOS R Mark II, the R8, the R9, it's nowhere to be seen. Canon has so many holes in their lineup. The EOS RP successor, the camera that sits between the EOS RP successor and the R6, the Canon high megapixel version of the R5, the R1. And what about all those affordable APS-C censored cameras? Yes, Canon just started now here in 2022 producing a mirrorless camera for the R system, and we called it the EOS R10 and the R7. The R7 being the high end, the R10 being a little bit more affordable at $979. But that's so far away from entry level. And who knows, maybe in a month or so, we're going to get the R100, a more affordable camera priced at around $599, designed for the ordinary everyday filmmaker and photographer. And I think what's going on here, there's a very real fear with Canon that if they don't catch up, if they don't produce enough camera bodies and enough lenses and then open up their system, well, they're not going to have a chance. And I think one of the reasons here is there's a little bit of insecurity, not arrogance as some have suggested, but an insecurity that they don't have nearly enough mirrorless cameras out there to meet the demand to fill in the holes in their lineup. And for those cameras that they have released, they clearly don't have enough RF glass out there. And the second reason cited by Canon Rumors reliable sources, Canon believes the more affordable options are already covered by the 100 and whatever million EF lenses out there that work extremely well. And yes, this is true. This is something that I have been saying on my channel for the last couple of weeks when I've been covering this story. I understand there's a level of frustration. Certain lenses like the Sigma Art, a 150 to 600 millimeter, a 100 to 650 millimeter, fill in the blanks of whatever lens that you're looking forward to coming from Sigma Art. And I'm not saying that Sigma Art isn't coming. I'm going to cover that off in a little bit. But we have a total of 107, not a million, but 107 different EF lenses out there. 107. It's an awful lot of lenses. And they can be easily adapted to any Canon camera that sits on the R system. And I have it right here. This one cost $199 because it's got the control ring. But you can pick up this adapter for $99. Now, if you really are upset with Canon and you've already gone ahead and purchased a Sony, hey, look, you know what? You got to do what makes you happy. But one thing I hate to see you do is make a decision based on frustration and anger. Sit back a little bit, take time to breathe and ask yourself, what are the outcomes you want to deliver? And if spending an extra $100 to get this adapter and then purchasing EF glass, which you know is always going to work because you're working with EF glass made by the same manufacturer, the lens adapter made by the same manufacturer, and then of course teaming it up with the camera bodies also made by the same lens manufacturer or same manufacturer, period. And I get it, there are certain focal lengths that Canon doesn't have even in the EF mount. There are certain lenses that Sigma makes in their art line that are truly amazing, that are truly, well, lenses that we would like to have and put on our cameras. And you know what? You actually can. Again, using that same EF to RF adapter, not only can you use Canon glass in all their 107 lenses, but you can also adapt other third-party makers of Canon glass for the EF mount. But we're seeing the same theme here as in the previous excuse. Canon is playing catch-up. They've got a lot of work to do. They've said it in their financial statements dating back to 2019 and 2020. They know they're late to the mirrorless game. Not only did they have to come up with the all-new mount, the RF mount, but all those mirrorless cameras on the APS-C line using the EF-M mount have been abandoned. If you have an APS-C mirrorless camera and you want to take advantage of Canon's new lenses, you do have to migrate. And when I say migrate, you have to buy a whole new camera, be it the the R10, the R7, R6, R5, R3, EOS R, or EOS RP. So again, I don't think this is a decision based on arrogance. I think this is a decision to help circle the wagons. With everything that's happened over the last couple of years, it's been very hard for Canon to get their cameras and lenses out. Just look at all the rumors that we started talking about back in 2020. These were CR3 by Canon rumors, the same source of information that has proven to be reliable more times than not. All these camera bodies, the EOS RP successor, the EOS R Mark II, these were cameras that were supposed to come out in late 2020, early 2021, and we haven't seen them. Again, the EOS R1 was supposed to be announced later this year, and even that looks like it's in doubt now. Canon is playing catch up, and I think there is definitely a fear that, well, they might not get all their lenses and camera bodies out in time, and by the time they are ready and they've got all the camera bodies out there, well, they can't nearly sell enough of their own product because there's so many third-party lens manufacturers out there, they just can't compete. You see, in this business, it's not just about producing a really good body. A lot of these camera manufacturers make their money off their lenses. That's where the margins are. It's not just about putting out a camera body. They have to sell the camera body, and they have to sell enough of them so people will demand their lenses, and they have to produce really good quality glass. And that's where Canon's playing catch up. And the last reason given, Canon isn't done with the tweaks and improvements to the RF mount. Now imagine this. You go out and purchase a third-party lens, whether it be Viltrox, Samyang, or insert any other of your favorite lens company made by a third party, and find out that Canon makes an improvement to the RF mount. Now this is a great improvement. It really helps for those of us that shoot professional, that shoot with the L-series glass, but it renders all those other third parties out there useless. That would be a frustration. And I'm not making an excuse here. This is what a source at Canon Rumors has told us. They're not finished working with the RF mount. And what that tells me is we're going to see future firmware updates for the camera lenses and the camera bodies themselves. And if Canon does do that, it is going to break all third-party lenses for the platform out there. It won't affect the EF ones because, well, EF lenses have already been done. That's over with. They're not going to make any more improvements there. Those are pretty well done. We shouldn't expect to see any firmware updates for EF lenses. But the RF system, it's definitely an issue and it's definitely a concern. My only question is, and this is where I'd love to see Canon Rumors follow up, what are the potential enhancements we could see that would improve the RF mount? What are things missing from the mount that we would like to see? What are areas of performance that could be improved? The real question is, are we going to see Sigma and Tamron? Are we going to see other third-party lens manufacturers? And well, this is what Canon Rumors had to say about that. And that not every manufacturer is going to be given the opportunity to make RF lenses. I hate to be right. This is one of those situations where I wish I wasn't right. I've been saying all along, I said this back late last year when Canon Rumors put out a CR3 saying that they believed that by later this year we could see some RF glass. Back then, based on what I was reading from the Sigma CEO, is I saw nothing in there that hinted, that even remotely hinted that we would see any RF lenses in 2022, let alone 2023. And I also said that I'd see the camera market starting to get back to normal around 2024, 2025. So, and I think that's what we're hearing here is 2024, 2025 is when we can expect to see authorized third-party RF lens manufacturers. And I definitely think Sigma is going to be one of those. I think Tamron's going to be one of those. But what about all these other third-party RF lens makers? Notice how that when Canon reached out to each one of them, they did stop producing the product. And I think there's the carrot and the stick. Canon has probably hinted at them that, look, we're not finished with this mount. We're going to continue updating. We're going to issue firmware updates to the camera bodies and the lenses. And eventually we are going to open up this system. And if you cooperate with us now, well, we'll be willing to authorize you to be able to produce RF lenses for the platform. Don't cooperate, we won't grant authorization. And if you choose to fight us on this one, well, we'll take you to court. Sure, we might lose here in China, but when it comes to the Japanese market, patent law is pretty consistent, as is in North America and Europe or Australasia. So I think there's a bit of a carrot and stick going on here, and I think there's an awful lot of frustration. I'm a little bit frustrated, but I'm not super annoyed. A lot of my lenses are RF lenses or L-series RF lenses. I appreciate the quality, and it really makes a huge difference. Look at what you're watching right now. I'm shooting with the Canon 50mm. It's an RF lens, f1.2, and I'm probably shooting it around f2.5 right now. But it's sharp, it's clear, it's a beautiful lens. But I understand that not everybody can afford those lenses, and if you have an EOS R, an EOS RP, or if you recently bought a Canon EOS R10 or R7, I can certainly understand your disappointment. And if you haven't left Canon yet, and you're just frustrated and you're wondering what to do next, do yourself a favor. Think of what capabilities you want in a camera and what you need over the next 5 years or so, and really give very careful consideration to purchasing an EF to RF adapter. In every situation where I've used this on the R5, the lenses have worked flawlessly. From the very expensive 50mm f1.2 for the EF to cheap lenses like the 10 to 18mm or the 18 to 135mm USM. It's worked flawless. Now I have heard that if you adapt lenses to the Canon EOS R5, there are some issues. But from what I've seen, this adapter is very, very simple to use. There's nothing really, all you have to do is unscrew it, attach it to your camera, attach the lens to this side, and you're good to go. There literally are millions and millions of EF glass out there. Canon has been producing them since 1986. You can certainly get yourself some bargains. And if you're a photographer, wow, you can open up almost that entire 107 lens series, because you don't have to worry about the loud noises that some of the earlier versions of some lenses made, such as the 24-105 version 1, or even the EF 35mm f1.4. The version 1 was quite loud, but version 2 with the ultrasonic, super quiet. There's a whole lot of lenses out there, and you can even adapt third-party company lenses such as Sigma or Tamron and many others, again, using this, but you have to buy the EF glass. And I understand the newness, the shininess of buying glass just for the RF mount and not having to worry about upgrading for many, many years. But you see, by using this EF to RF adapter and by using EF glass, you also shouldn't have to update for many, many years. And again, if we're looking at those affordable lenses, the EFS lenses, they also work with this adapter. I just mentioned that 10-18mm, it's an EFS lens. The 18-135, also EFS. However, I will say this, when brought to a full frame camera like the R5 and the R6, it's forced into crop mode, which means that 8K oversample 4K won't work, and well, 4K 120 won't work, but a lot of the other modes will work perfectly fine. So I'm not here to sell you one way or another. I understand your frustration. I understand some of you are very, very upset over this. All I'm saying is when we're angered by something, the best thing to do is not to make a decision in anger or in frustration, but to let ourselves cool off. And while we're cooling off, ask us what it is we really, really want. And if Sony's E-mount with all those hundreds of lenses for both, made by both Sony as well as third parties for very cheap and affordable low-cost lenses, all the way up to the very expensive professional G-Lens, G-Master, well, do what makes sense for you. But if you want to stay up to date on this issue, which is changing on a weekly basis, this first came out last week, and wow, has it changed even so much today, and there's more to go on. If you want to stay up to date on the latest camera news and rumors, or this issue with third-party lenses for the Canon RF mount, go ahead and subscribe, but make sure you also choose all notifications. That's the ticket. If you choose all notifications, as soon as I publish a new video like this one here, you'll get notified by YouTube, so that way you can stay up to date on the latest camera news and rumors, and it can help you with your purchasing decisions. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you again soon.